A very good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity to present Close the Loop at this NWR Vantage Point conference this morning. My name is Joe Foster, and I'm the current CEO of Close the Loop in Australia and global. I think what's quite important is to mention from the outset that our business is very much still about a global circular economy business operating within the ESG space. Our business model is very much about repurpose, recovery, recycling of print consumables, electronic consumable items, certainly as a result of the recent acquisition of ISP Tech services. And of course, we have our packaging divisions in Australia and South Africa, Europe and North America. I think what's quite important for us is that we stated from the outset that our business model was going to be very much operating within the circular economy, and really the only company here on the ASX that's listed with an end-to-end solution, whereby we have the ability to collect, to recycle, to redesign, and certainly remanufacture products that are suitable for repurposing and putting them back into the circular economy. I think certainly the acquisition of our recent purchase has really put us in a very strong position from a remanufacturing and a repurposing perspective. I think you would have seen the numbers that we put out quite recently. Certainly we're tracking quite well, certainly from our first 6-month numbers, to be forecasting an FY23 EBITDA of 22 million, and an FY24 forecast we would expect our business model to be around plus 43 million EBITDA with a revenue of 200 million plus. And what we're saying, we're really seeing this as a result of our enterprise customers now situated with over 250 plus across the world. If you look at Close the Loop Group, we're operating in 4 geographical areas: North America, Europe, Africa and Australia. And we have a number of business units that are certainly operating within the circular economy. And I think what's quite important to point out at this stage, our model is very much about being very well positioned within the ESG space, and we want to actually continue to explore new avenues and how can we actually grow our business in that space, certainly expanding offering services that we have across the Close the Loop businesses that we operate at the moment. Very brief introduction to ISP. We took this company on board at the end of April. We closed out on a deal that we've published. I'm sure most of you know all about it. This company is very much about the repurposing of electronic consumable items, and it's all based on customer returns and spot buying. We're working with the leading OEMs in North America, and I think what's quite important to point out is that our business model there is about specializing in reverse logistics on customer returns. Our ability to refurbish and remanufacture printers, laptops, desktops, gamers and so forth, and bring it back into the market within a 30-day period compared to a 6 or 8 month period in the previous setup. The large OEMs that we work with in North America are quite happy to support Close the Loop and ISP Tech services in terms of the offering that we have with regards to our ability to repurpose these machines. Our ability in Texas, Dallas, is currently operating and repurposing 1,500 laptops a day, and have recently just upgraded our facility to take on an additional 500 to 750 laptops a day, and that's on one single shift, in anticipation on bringing in additional revenues into our business. If you look at the business going forward for FY24, we will certainly see our business model operating within a $200 million revenue business plus, as a result of the ISP Tech service acquisition, Implast, and also the existing businesses within the Close the Loop Group. Of course, when we look at this revenue figure, we're not taking into consideration the synergies and also the additional revenue that we bring on board as a result of our expansion into other OEMs and expansion from a global perspective in terms of what we want to do with regards to taking the ISP Tech service business outside of North America. And of course, these items, as you can see on the screen, are just some of the items that we process at our facility in Dallas, Texas. Mainly laptops would be certainly the largest part of our processing, Chromebooks, printers, and quite recently we took on board commercial printers and enterprise printers at the facility in Dallas. And now over the course of the last 4 to 5 weeks, as a result of the acquisition from ISP Tech services, we are now processing these commercial printers and enterprise printers at our facility at Close the Loop in Hebron, Kentucky, which again increases the revenue for our Close the Loop business in North America. What our opportunities really are in terms of our growth perspective with ISP is phase one, of course, is to look at expanding that service across into the European market. We've already engaged with a number of clients to look at taking back laptop printers and laptops and printers, should I say, to refurbish them in our facility in Belgium. Phase two, of course, would be naturally to expand it across into the Australian market. And again, phase three would be to look at offering the same services into our African market, where we're very well positioned to bring in models number 2, 3, and 4 with regards to some of these electronic consumable items. I think we're very well positioned from a global perspective to bring on this new business as a result of the ISP Tech service business model, and expand the services, not just within the existing OEMs that ISP work with them, but certainly to a broader base of OEMs, which is the original equipment manufacturers that we currently work with through the closed loop business. And that, of course, is where we actually refurbish and remanufacture and recycle print consumables, print cartridges at scale through our 3 different divisions in North America, in Belgium, and also in Australia. Looking into the future, where we see the growth opportunities for our business, we certainly will be leveraging the US market growth opportunities through this acquisition. And what we're saying there is that we want to look at expanding what we're doing now currently with the OEMs across to multiple OEMs in North America, and of course into Europe and Australia. We see a lot of positive organic growth taking place by cross-selling and customer expansion, not just within the OEMs from an ISP perspective, but also from a packaging point of view as well. There's a lot of opportunity, certainly within the North American market, to actually drive the circular economy through our offering from Close the Loop. And of course, we've already engaged by leveraging infrastructure into new market verticals. And we've seen that quite recently as a result of bringing on new programs, put them through our existing infrastructure in North America, namely the Estee Lauder program, take back program for cosmetics. That's already engaged and fully up and running. We're also doing the same for mobile phone case covers, glasses, stationery products, and so forth. So naturally, that would be the ideal opportunity to take on extra growth from that point of view. And of course, we will further commercialize our existing technologies and talk about taking what we have and how do we expand it out further into new technologies, battery take-back programs, toys, power tools, as an example, vacuum cleaners. There's a whole range of products that we want to look at utilizing our existing technology for further commercialization. I think what's quite pleasing from a packaging point of view, and of course the packaging part of our business represents in between 35 and 37% of the overall revenue for the group. And of course this business, as you may know, is a very good cash generating business, certainly for our operations in Australia and in South Africa. What's quite pleasing to see quite recently as a result of a visit to the biggest packaging exhibition in Europe, that more and more packaging is going more towards circular economy, i.e. mono-based plastic materials, packaging material that's utilizing your single-use plastics for recyclability and of course recycled content. Very pleasing, as I say, from Close the Loop's perspective, that we're very well ahead of that space. And what you can see in front of you is packaging that we've migrated across from very difficult to recycle consumable mixed plastics into a mono-based structure, which is now deemed to be more recyclable friendly, not just in Australia, but around the world. So that was quite pleasing to see that from that point of view. I think what's also quite good is that we got some very good international trusted partners on our books, some excellent tier 1 customers that operate not just within Australia, but certainly with some global contracts around the world. HP is a great example where we have contracts in place in North America, Belgium, and of course in Australia. The same with some of the other OEMs as well, where these contracts can actually go on for anything between 2 and 5 years, depending on the level of the contract and the service that we offer to the actual OEM, which is the original equipment manufacturer. And again, we continue to win awards, not just here in Australia, overseas in Europe. We picked up additional World Packaging Organizations award for our sustainable solutions. In America, quite recently, we won an industry-based award for our ability to work with bringing people back to work from underprivileged areas, which is quite pleasing to see. And of course, we will continue to work with industry-based bodies. And we're finding that in Australia in particular, we seem to be the go-to company with regards to trying to find solutions around circular economy and what can we do to bring products back to life as opposed to designing products that are deemed for waste. Our objective, quite clearly, as an ESG company, is to work in the refurbishment, the remanufacturing, and the recycling of products, trying to find a new life for this packaging material. And hence the reason why we're quite excited to be up and running with our new tonoplast line by the end of this year. Our objective quite clearly is that once the plant is up and running towards the end of this year, 2023, would be to roll out these units across Australia, South Australia, Brisbane, New South Wales, and of course Western Australia, as the demand is there. We're quite excited. This technology is certainly groundbreaking technology developed in Australia, where we can take big bales of plastic material without having to sort them out, repurpose this material, recycle the material, and turn it into a tonoplast, which is the asphalt additive that's used for the roads here in Australia, that not only just improves the efficiencies, but also gives a longer life with regards to the actual physical shelf life of the roads. So in summary, I do believe as a company, Closed Loop, we're very well positioned from a strategic perspective, and we've got excellent infrastructure in place across our 4 geographical areas. We continue to develop more and more large tier 1 customers, and certainly very involved in innovation, sustainable companies. And we seem to be the company that our clients want to reach out to find solutions, because the targets are coming quite close. Certainly from an Australian and a European perspective, we're finding that 2025 is just around the corner, not just for packaging, but for take-back programs for electronic consumable items and also for print consumables. Just to mention on that one, we're very active in Belgium. We're rolling out a multi-take-back program across Benelux, Germany, and the UK. That's due to take place in June this year, whereby we have all of the OEMs coming on board for multi-take-back programs, and this will generate a significant additional revenue for our businesses in Europe. I think we've got a great economy of scale. And if you look at the moment, we operate on a single shift basis. We have the ability to shift up to second shift and third shift across our 3 different manufacturing facilities from a closed loop operation perspective. And of course, from a packaging point of view, that economies of scale is endless as we bring more and more customers on board. I think we got 20-year track record, no doubt about it, from a profitability and cash on the line generation. And in fact, our one business unit, which is Foster Packaging, just celebrated our 25-year anniversary 2 months ago in South Africa. And I do see our business really as a real true ESG business with clear value and add proposition. And that will be certainly the line that we will take. And that is the strategy for our business going forward, to stay certainly within this space. And I do honestly think that Closed Loop Group have got a clear pathway for continued growth following the acquisitions and certainly the core operations. And certainly if you consider the expertise and the geographical scale, I think as a company, we are certainly very well positioned to take it to that next level. So Simon, I'd like to thank you and I'd like to thank the team for the opportunity to present today. And I certainly look forward to any questions that may come about.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Joe. Just a reminder for those that are on the line, you can ask questions through the Q&A panel at the bottom of the screen. I've had a few come through already. Joe, just in terms of the single sort of 1-year rolling contract term with a major OEM, does that create vulnerability down the track should the major OEM want some of the revenue being generated by ISP?
No, thanks very much, Sean. It's a great question. We don't honestly believe so, because it's not just a matter of turning off your supply after 1 year. There's, if you consider how long it took for ISP to build the process, build the reverse logistics and the program around the refurbishment and the resetting of all these electronic components, we don't believe it's vulnerable from our major OEM. In fact, we're sort of expanding out into other OEMs. And what I wanted to say earlier on, the positioning that we have, certainly with this major OEM, is allowing some unbelievable synergies within the closed loop operational group itself, so we can expand their services outside of just electronic consumable items, but further offerings within the OEMs itself as well. So we're quite positive about that from that perspective.
Great, thanks, Joe. What are the plans for the European expansion of ISP services, referencing comments from the acquisition presentation that Europe will become the same size as the current US ISP business? How's this tracking, and when do you expect material revenues from this region?
Indeed. Well, certainly when we went to the market back in December 2021, we honestly believed that the European market would certainly be the same size as what the American market was from closed loop operations in America. The reason why we said that was because the regulatory tailwinds are very much in our favor. By 2025, we see the new targets being set for the recovery of print consumables, the recovery of electronic consumables, and hence the reason why we're engaging with the OEMs for the print consumable side, and also engaging with one or two of the main OEMs to bring printers, laptops, and desktops back in place. It's a process. The print consumables is already starting, so we would expect to see some revenue in the later part of this year from the print consumable perspective. But from an ISP perspective, we would start to see it happening with revenue generating in the calendar year of FY24, Simon.
Great, thanks, Joe. What proportion of the ISP business is reliant upon the major OEM contract? Do other third parties such as Microsoft and Samsung contribute much of total revenues? And perhaps just expanding on that, Joe, if you can just sort of talk through why the major OEM who we partner with basically onshores this through ISP and doesn't do it themselves.
Yeah, well, first of all, the actual percentage of the major OEM we work with is between 85 and 88%. This OEM is the largest provider in the North American market. They've got over 65% of the market share. Okay. What was happening in the past, Simon, this OEM in particular do not have reverse logistics in place. What was happening in the past was these goods were being collated at the store. They were returned to essentially China, where the products were manufactured under license for the OEM. Most of the OEMs in particular don't have their own manufacturing, and certainly don't have manufacturing in North America. The objective quite clearly was to bring that manufacturing, the remanufacturing, back into the North American market to certainly protect the data that was on the laptops, computers, and also the printers as well. So we're very aligned and certainly very integrated with this large OEM and part of their supply chain. We're part of their marketing supply chain, and we would see our positioning with this particular OEM growing even more. And certainly as a result of our recent discussions with the particular OEM, we're looking at how can we bring on additional services in the North American market. So I think we're very well positioned within the space from ISP Tech Services to service not just this large OEM, but other companies, as you mentioned, like Microsoft. We do quite a lot of Microsoft products. We do Samsung products as well, Dell. Of course, the idea behind taking this business on and certainly freeing up the owners of the business, which was Sammy Solomon and Daniel Solomon, was allow them to expand the offering to the marketplace across numerous OEMs, not just in the North American market, but of course in the European market as well.
Great, thanks, Joe. And just a follow-on question with regards to ISP, can you talk to us about what more can be done with the major OEM or OEM relationships with regards to being trusted partners with those guys?
Well, I think we're very well positioned with the OEMs. I mean, certainly this OEM in particular, I'm sure most people know who it is. So they being the largest supplier to the marketplace, and they want to keep their positioning at 65%. Their goal by 2030 is to refurbish and remanufacture electronic consumable items up to 3 or 4 times. Okay, if the products cannot be recycled and refurbished 3 or 4 times, then they will actually be physically recycled, and they would be recycled through, let's say, through our closed loop facility in Hebron, in Kentucky. So we're saying that we're looking at the next level. That next level is from now to 2030. How do we actually get our hands on? How do we physically then be able to refurbish a laptop that's maybe 2 or 3 years old, harvest some key parts of these laptops or printers and so forth, and then repurpose them back into the market? So we're talking about, how can we embed ourselves further within the OEMs in terms of helping them to achieve their sustainable goals. And all of the OEMs are putting their hands up to be heavily sort of involved within the ESG space, and certainly from a circular economy perspective, and reaching out to the likes of ISP Tech Services and Close the Loop, and helping them to achieve their ESG goals between 2025 and 2030. So that is a major strategy, Simon, for our business in North America, is to reach out and try and embed ourselves more to help them achieve their sustainable goals, and of course bring more product into our operations in Hebron, Kentucky, and of course Dallas.
Great, thanks, Joe. Can you quantify the identified synergies you mentioned in the recent business update resulting from the ISP acquisition, and elaborate on the expansion of contracts and product lines?
So we're talking about the synergies, of course. Are we referring to what we've just done with Hebron, Kentucky, where we've opened up a brand new facility to refurbish and remanufacture the commercial printers and the enterprise printers? I think that's one area. The other area, of course, is we're talking to the same OEMs And in fact, some of the OEMs that ISP Tech Services are talking to, they're talking to a higher level sustainable personnel, whereas the closed loop operations are talking to the mid-tier level people within the OEM. So we now want to sort of obviously leverage the relationships that ISP have got with these OEMs at the higher level to sort of further our scope of business and sort of get better synergies between closed loop operations in America and the and ISP Tech Services as well, to bring more product, bring really a bigger suite of product to the actual business itself, not just within the ISP, but certainly within closed loop as well.
Great, thanks, Joe. Obviously, ISP does a number of refurbishing of electronics. Can you just talk us through how they get access in terms of spot buying? And obviously that's a reasonably lucrative, not a run rate style business, but just talk us through that as well, please.
Yeah, yes, 100%. So just maybe to go back a step for a moment, how the existing model works, the way the existing model works at the moment is that ISP are the preferred refurbisher for this large OEM, whereby this OEM has a contract when they sell laptops, as an example, that there's a 5% return rate for consumer returns in the marketplace. Okay, what tends to happen when the consumer can actually bring the product back within 30 days, and then and those laptops, printers, and so forth will end up at ISP Tech Services. That's the one part of the business. The other part of the business, which is also very lucrative, which you've alluded to, is our ability to spot buy. Because we are deemed to be the favored partner to the actual OEM itself, we have the ability to process these spot buys and have them back in and repurposed back into the market a lot quicker than what was happening in the past. Now, what was going on was that these spot buys were going to market and there was actually an auction and there was no control of where these products were actually ending up. Whereas now with this particular OEM, the idea and the objective quite clearly is for them to try and maintain their 65% market share. And if they can control their market share by, not control it, but certainly be in a much better position to push their products back out through the channels that they have trusted, namely ISP Tech Services, this is really advantageous for this OEM itself.
Right, thanks, Joe. And just last question. Are there laws around returns within a certain time period similar around the globe, or are they unique to the US market?
Now, that's a very good question, Simon. That's what we're trying to figure out, to be very honest with you. So North America, yeah, it's at first I thought it was unique, but when we start digging into what's going on in Europe and what's going on in Australia, I'll be able to give you an answer certainly within the next week or two. But I'm sure the question you put to me was because it was a leading question about what are we doing in our European market, our Australian market. So that's very much, we've got a plan in place, and that's what we're looking at in detail. I mean, it makes a lot of sense to leverage the infrastructure that we have in the North American market and do the same in Europe and do the same in Australia. I mean, we've got good infrastructure in Australia. We've got excellent expertise here in Australia as well. Why wouldn't we want to leverage off the experience that we've got through the ISP? So that's something we will be working on, Simon.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the presentation, Joe. And for anyone on the line who wanted to know more or organise a follow-up with Joe, he's very passionate about the business. It's in a fantastic space, so just reach out on the email and happy to organise. But thanks so much for presenting, Joe. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Simon, and thanks for everybody for listening today. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks.